In this skill focused activity, we're going to be looking at three very powerful words: because, so, but. Say those with me. Because, so, but. Let's say it a little faster. Because, so, but. Yeah, these three words are what we consider transitional words. And that's a fancy way of saying they serve like a bridge in a sentence. They connect information in the beginning of the sentence with information in the second or last part of the sentence. And these three simple ones are where we love for students to begin to explore transitional words because they not only help their conversations get deeper, they help them become more critical thinkers about the topic. And lastly, they really help with writing some complex and impressive sentences. So let's talk a little bit further about that in terms of why we focus on transitional words so much in writing with design. And that's because we know a pretty powerful statistic, and that is that high scoring writing, no matter the grade level, so that could be second grade or that could be 12th grade, but no matter the grade level, we know that high scoring writing has about a transitional word or phrase in nearly every sentence. And we're not talking first, then next, last, and finally. We're talking about the more subtle ones that we're beginning to introduce today, and we'll even have some more subtle ones that students can advance into as they get more comfortable with these first three: because, so, but. So here they are in a brainstorming design, because this is the design we love to use for students to just see ideas or to brainstorm all of their thoughts on a topic. And so this is a fun way to show the three accessible transitions, meaning they're ones that students probably already say. And so that helps them start to think about, what do I mean when I say because? And what do I mean when I say so? Or what do I mean when I say but? So these three words are kind of a transition into transitions, in the sense that they're ones that students probably already know, but can really be intentional about what they put in their writings or even in discussion as they use these words. So we are going to be studying this topic today together. And so I do have a pop quiz for you. Do you know what our state vegetable is? It's the watermelon. That is not a misprint of the picture. It is the watermelon. So that's a fascinating fact about our state. And so what we have on this next slide are three different sources for you to go to and learn a little bit more. I have on here for the next 2 minutes, just to make it light and easy. Students can use devices to find this information, or you can just pop them up on the screen and talk through what information we can glean from the different articles. So this is source one, and we can see that it was from 2007. It was when Governor Brad Henry was in office. And it even goes into some of the other state symbols that we have. And then it gets a little bit into the discussion about really watermelon as a vegetable. But sure enough, it has a lot to do with Rush Springs, our a famous town here in Oklahoma known for their watermelons, and they have a watermelon festival. So it makes sense that the legislators from Rush Springs were the ones who came up with this bill, and made the case that watermelon should be an official state something. And so they decided on vegetable because the strawberry is already the state fruit. So that title was already taken. So some fun information in here about Rush Springs and about the history of this decision. And so that's just source one. Source two is from The Guardian. It's funny to say that it's a scandal, right? How could we declare it as a vegetable? So there's some more information in here just about how the bill was passed, by what votes. This is the senator from the Rush Springs area who sponsored the bill. So discuss these with students, talk about all the fun information in here, and really just read to build knowledge on this topic. Maybe students have already studied Oklahoma history, and so they'll know some of this information, but it's always great to come to sources, to read together, and these are all very short and concise articles that you can take a look at with students. One more: why watermelon is considered a vegetable in Oklahoma. And this one's pretty recent, which is fun to see. And This one, again, kind of you'll see that there's some verification of data between the three sources. And that's one thing we really do like to teach students, especially when they're finding information online, is that triangulation of data. Can you find the same information from three very different but reputable sources? And that really helps students know that they've got good information, solid information, accurate information to be putting into their writing. So fabulous information they can glean from these three. It gets a little bit more into kind of the history of the debate about watermelon and why some can claim it's a vegetable, why it's not a very clear distinction. And so again, really neat information to pull in. Here's one neat piece that it actually is considered part of the cucumber family, and that's how Senator Don Barrington justified his recommendation for it as our state vegetable. So let's go back over here. That's the research we encourage you all to do to just get some great information for students to pull from. You could print the articles for them. They could pull them up on devices, highlight, talk through the information that you can find in all three of them, just so that they've got some verified and accurate information to now launch into. Actually, that was our timer. It's super cute if you want to use this. It shows ants eating a piece of watermelon. So I will skip over this slide though for right now, and we'll get to the next part of the activity. So that's a timer again, if you want to use that to have students only have 2 minutes. You can also adjust it to longer if you would like, and it's just really neat to watch the ants completely basically disintegrate a piece of watermelon. All right, so let's get into what do we do now with these three transitional words. So you'll see up here at the top, we have that the sentence stem goes here. So that's the information that is at the core of what we're studying. So we'll talk about what that will be here in just a minute, but a sentence stem goes up at the top. And then we branch down in what we call a classifying design into these three columns. And you can see the first one starts with because, the second starts with so, and then the third one starts with but, the three transitional words that we are wanting students to learn and to practice using. And then you can see we've got these two parts that are called varied sentence starters. And that's because we don't want students to start the sentence over and over with the same sentence stem. So when we use because, what does that signal, right? Transitional words are signals. They are bridges, right? They connect information and they signal the type of information that's coming over on the other side of the bridge. So because signals causes or reasons why, okay? And that's all that students really need to know about that word. I do have 3 down below that are just synonyms for because, that if students want to vary in their sentence, not using the word because, they could say due to or since or for. For is a little bit tricky. That's why I have it as the last one, but it does make for a really complex and interesting sentence structure and just a more sophisticated sounding sentence. But as we're getting started, because is just fine to use. With so, it signals effects or results. It talks about what happened after the event or the topic that's mentioned in the sentence stem. And so you can see 3 great transitional words for that, or phrases. As a result, there's a phrase, consequently, and hence. All 3 of those are interchangeable with so, and just depending on the tone of the piece and what's being talked about, some might sound better than others. And so this is where writers have get to find their voice and have choice to decide which words they want to pull in. And lastly is but. And that signals a contrasting statement, that we're going to share something that is in opposition or that is in contrast or a difference to the information that we stated in the sentence stem. And we like to call these fancy buts because that's just fun to say. Transitional words down at the bottom in the orange, the teal, and the green are all fancier versions or more advanced versions, but just saying a fancy but is just fun, and students remember that, and it helps them really get into more exciting transitional words. So we have however, while, on the other hand, and even though. So this one has 4. There's actually a lot of ways to say but. So it's one of the first ones that we do want students to replace as they get more comfortable with using it and using it accurately. So lots of great transitional words to pull from here, and there's still a lot more that we have in our resources with Writing with Design. But these are enough for this activity, and I always love to do that to give students a great little set of choice, but not the whole list, because that can just be overwhelming. So let's get our sentence stem. Oklahoma state vegetable is the watermelon, right? Because why? What did we learn from the articles? Why did Oklahoma decide that its state vegetable was the watermelon, right? That's the way you want to phrase this for students, is to say, why? Why did this happen? What caused this to happen? Well, we read that the strawberry was already taken as the state fruit, right? Or that it was to promote the Rush Springs, right? That the legislator was from the Rush Springs area and wanted to promote the festival, right? And also, we didn't have one, right? At that point, we didn't have a state vegetable, so why not make it the watermelon? Then we can move on to so. So as a result, what happened? What was a consequence? And we don't use consequence as a negative. It really just means what was an effect, what happened after. Well, it could be that the town of Rush Springs could promote its festival, right? So sometimes causes and effects can be quite similar. Or so news articles were written about us that made Oklahoma seem like we didn't know our difference between vegetables and fruit. Or so no one would ever forget what our state vegetable is, right? You can think about the consequences, the effects, what happened next after the state vegetable is the watermelon, is known, right? What's the effect of that? And then lastly is but, right? What's a difference? What's something that's in opposition or is different from what's in that sentence stem? But, so Oklahoma state vegetable is a watermelon, but everywhere else it's a fruit, or but it doesn't sit well with a lot of people, or but it doesn't really change if people like it or not, right? So you can have fun with having students kind of pull from the articles and talk about their answers here. And that really is a fantastic use of this. It doesn't have to be taken to writing. Just having great discussions and having students say the whole sentence stem transition and then their answer below is really building up their working memory to hold on to a lot more information at the same time and not speak in or write super short sentences. So the more that you can get them to read through the entire sentence. So again, not just from the transition on, but pulling in that sentence stem, transition, and the rest of the sentence, that's really going to boost their thinking processes, their abilities to speak complex sentences, and then certainly to write them. So let's take a look at just 3 options here so we can really talk this through. So imagine this is something that's completed on paper or on the board or somewhere where students are seeing this great information put together. And this is coming from them, right? If you're doing this in a classroom, this is through class discussion. If you're doing this at home, this could be on a sheet of paper with everyone giving information that they learned from the topic or know about this whatever the sentence stem is, right? So Oklahoma state vegetable is the watermelon because the strawberry already held the title of the official state fruit. Oklahoma state vegetable is the watermelon, so the town of Rush Springs can further promote its annual watermelon festival. Oklahoma state vegetable is the watermelon, but basically everywhere else it is still considered a fruit, even in the dictionary. So you can see this is just one example of what students could put at the end of each of these transitional words. And the goal is to have a discussion where they're reading these sentences, they're practicing giving a reason why, they're practicing talking about an effect, and they're practicing giving a contrasting statement to the sentence stem. So make sure that's a part of the discussion of what does because signal, what does so signal, what does but signal, so that they're really thinking about, I am giving an effect when I use so, I am giving a cause when I say because, right? Getting them to have that sense of what the transitional word does in their sentence is critically important. So this could just be taken right into writing this way as well, right? But if you notice, as we read them earlier, and these boxes or the numbers are just indicating, hey, this is the order we like it in. You could play around with this. You could start with the middle one. Maybe that would sound better. But these generally go in this order. The only ones that you might switch around would be starting with the but statement, because generally we like to hear a cause and then an effect. So because and so generally go in order this way, but could be put at the end or at the beginning of the 3 sentences. But what you do hear over and over is that I repeated that sentence stem, right? I said, Oklahoma State vegetable is the watermelon because, Oklahoma State vegetable is the watermelon so, Oklahoma State vegetable is the watermelon but. So all 3 times I started with the same sentence stem. And when you're practicing orally, when you're just getting going, that is perfect because we want students, again, to be focusing on pulling in those transitional words, knowing what they signal, and then going into additional information to lengthen their sentence. Okay, but pretty quickly, that's going to sound too repetitive in our sentences, and it doesn't make for a great paragraph. So what we want to start to do is go into our varied sentence starters, okay? And you'll notice we also have due to, since, for, right? We've got the more subtle transitions for each of the 3 that we've started with so that students have a little bit of a bank to pull from. So the slide previous to this one just had them listed out again, but you see them embedded within the 3 columns here. So now we have to think about the order. We have to think about how we might start sentences. And so you can see here that we've just played around with if we wanted to move into this first sentence, right, with a different sentence starter, a varied sentence starter, what might it be? And this just comes through discussion. It comes from trying out the sentences in different orders. And so I'm going to actually pop up the order in which we played around with them and came up with a sentence or a paragraph structure. So the first one, I'm actually going to move over here to the but column and look at starting with one of my favorites, which is even though. So if we said, even though basically everywhere else it is still considered a fruit, even in the dictionary, then that becomes a fabulous transitional phrase at the beginning of a sentence that can then launch us into going up here to number 2. So even though basically everywhere else it is considered a fruit, even in the dictionary, Oklahoma State vegetable is the watermelon. Then we can come here to 3 and 4. This unique choice stems from the fact that the strawberry already held the title of the official state fruit. Now, there's other ways to start this sentence, but this is just kind of came from discussion of, so even though it is a fruit, Oklahoma State vegetable is watermelon. So this is a pretty strange decision, right? And strange is a little bit of a negative connotation. So we'll say unique to say it's memorable, it's something special to Oklahoma. And so we can highlight that with the way that we want to start this sentence. Notice it's still about Oklahoma State vegetable is the watermelon. So the way that we ended up with what we have there at that first varied sentence starter is to say, okay, what is it? What is this? Oklahoma State vegetable is a watermelon. What is that? Was that a forced decision? Was that just something that was just randomly decided? No, it's a unique choice, right? And it was something from the legislators. We could have added that in. This unique choice by state legislators, right? In 2007 stems from the fact that, so you can think about adding in lots more information from the research that was done, and also just through discussion. How can we link what we have for the cause, right, under because? How can we link that into a sentence without restating Oklahoma State vegetable is the watermelon? So it's just trial and error. It's what we call writing out loud, where you know part of the sentence and you think about the other part, and you just build that vocabulary. You build that sense of what makes a fantastic and complex sentence. So far our writing sounds like this. Even though basically everywhere else it is considered a fruit, even in the dictionary, Oklahoma State vegetable is the watermelon. This unique choice stems from the fact that the strawberry already held the title of the official state fruit. Now, in that case, we didn't even use one of the transitions that are listed for because, but we do have we very much are stating a cause in the way that our varied sentence starter is formed. So that also goes into how do we, or what do we put here for that varied sentence starter? It could be kind of taking the idea of, well, we're telling a cause. So how could we start that at the beginning of our sentence? Okay, so let's keep going. We're going to come here and down here. So that obviously leaves the so or the result sentence or part information to share. And so you can see the other varied sentence starter pulls directly from the transitional word, the choices, right? As a result, of this unique distinction, oh, we've got unique twice. We need to work on that. As a result of this unique distinction, the town of Rush Springs can further promote its annual watermelon festival. So this ordering of it, you can see this is a lot more complex. It doesn't even start with the sentence stem, right? This is moving on up in terms of more advanced work on getting students to play around with the order of their phrases, but really seeing writing like a game of Tetris, right? The shapes are coming down in the game of Tetris and you get to rearrange them and stack them different ways. And that's the same kind of thing here. And visualize each of these as a different shape, as a different part of the Tetris game, and how can you shape them together? How can you line them up so that you're making those rows and scoring those points? It's the same premise here. It just makes writing a lot more flexible and fluid because you're seeing, gosh, I have all these phrases, right? There's 6 different phrases right here, and we didn't even use all the ones that are here to really come up with a fantastic little paragraph. So that's what you're seeing down here. Even though everywhere else it is considered a fruit, even in the dictionary, Oklahoma state vegetable is the watermelon. This unique choice stems from the fact that the strawberry already held the title of the official state fruit. As a result of this, we're just going to say this memorable distinction. Let's replace unique with memorable. As a result of this memorable distinction for watermelons, the town of Rush Springs can further promote its annual watermelon festival. So you've got this fantastic short little paragraph. This would impress any teacher in any grade level with complex sentences, with accurate information, and with structures in the sentences that are really interesting to read. Now, let's circle back to the very first thing that we talked about of a transitional word or phrase per sentence. Do we have them? Well, in the first sentence, we have even though. Do we have one in our second sentence? This unique choice stems from the fact that the strawberry already held the title of the official state fruit. No, we don't. Second sentence, as a result of this memorable distinction for watermelons, yes, the town of Rush Springs can further promote its annual watermelon festival. So we have 2 transitions in 3 sentences, and that fits our ratio of what we see in high scoring writing. So it's not a matter of just mindlessly inserting transitional words first, second, finally, in conclusion, right? Those megaphone ones that honestly nobody enjoys reading anyway. It doesn't wow anybody. What we're talking about are these much more complex, subtle ones, and they're purposeful, right? They're not just inserted at the front of every sentence. They're embedded within, they weave into the sentence where you don't even know you're hearing a transition, and yet we all would recognize this as a really strong paragraph that a student wrote. So I leave you with a quotation from Joan Didion, a fantastic writer here in the States. She summed it up beautifully. I write to know what I think. And that's one of the most powerful things with these skill focus activities, with taking students to take their learning to writing. It gives them a purpose for researching information, for doing their additional homework at home, for working on a class project, whatever the assignment is, the task is. When writing is incorporated as a way that they are showcasing their learning, I can guarantee you they're thinking about it, they're grappling with it, they are really analyzing the information, and that's really helping them retain the knowledge, which is one of the core goals of education, right? Is to make sure that our students are leaving K-12 with a solid foundation of core knowledge. And there is no faster way, no more powerful way to ensure that students are learning content than through writing. One last piece I'll point out on that is if we go back to this slide here, think about how many times we read out loud the writing, right? We wrote out loud, we practiced our sentences, we put them in order, we tried out different ways. That's helping to remember the information. That's rehearsing the information. This is also helping students become stronger readers because they're repeating complex words. Maybe this is happening in a 4th grade class, and words like even though or everywhere are a bit of a challenge for some students. This is going to help them learn these more complex words because they have an opportunity to stay focused on it and to repeat it multiple times. Writing takes practice, writing takes grit, and these three transitional words and as a bridge into more complex sentences are going to make your students even that much more powerful thinkers, class discussioners, I just made up a word there, and lastly, writers. Happy writing.